Now I ask you to compare what you could have imagined in January 1946 to what you actually see in November 2011, where they closed West End Avenue on the Upper West Side of New York on Simchat Torah so Jews can dance with Torahs, where occasionally they hire people without kippot on Madison Avenue, where Jews have become entirely accepted and very successful. And like every community that's successful, people who do very good things, some people who do very bad things, we're normal in that regard. Sometimes wonderfully so, and sometimes shamefully so. But you would not have imagined the kind of flourishing that you have in New York, that you have in Los Angeles, that you have in Boston, that you have, by the way, in Berlin, which is the fastest growing Jewish community anywhere in Europe, that you have in Warsaw, which is experiencing, for example, the Jewish cultural arts revival with everything that that entails except for Jews. No, it's being done by non-Jews, but a huge cultural arts revival of the Jews. You would not have imagined anything that we have. And I want to suggest to you that it's not an accident that we have it, because it's a result of the State of Israel. And it did not begin to be in 1947 when they voted in the UN, and it did not begin to be in May 1948 when we declared independence, and it did not begin to be in 1949 when the war gradually ended, or in 56. The turning point is 1967. It is in 1967 when American Jews begin to come out of the woodwork. It is in 1967 when it's also a product of other kinds of things, but there's the whole Chavurah movement. Some of you may remember that the Jewish catalogs, those what for them was blockbuster sales for Jewish Publication Society books, came out written by Michael and Sharon Strassfeld, which brought kind of a popularization of Judaism and Jewish ritual to a whole new generation of people. There was the whole Earth catalog that some people know about. This was kind of the Jewish version of that. There was the Chavurah movement, as I mentioned, the beginning of Soviet Jewry. The movement to free Soviet Jewry is a post-June 1967 movement. Because Soviet Jews heard about what was going on in the Middle East. They heard about it, by the way, in Pravda, which announced it and reported on it reasonably accurately in certain cases. And they said, that we want to be a part of. That's a different kind of Jew. We want to be part of that. What the Jewish people did, in a sense, is to transform the iconic image of what it meant to be a Jew from one famous photograph to another. Let me explain. In 1946, in January 1946, when we're doing our little experiment, or mind experiment, and I'd said to you, tell me about the future of the Jews, and you'd answered your question, and then I'd said to you, now tell me one image, some photographic, iconic image of what it means to be a Jew. The photograph that the vast majority of you would have picked is that little boy in the Warsaw Ghetto with his hands in the air, wearing his little jacket, and he's got those black socks up to his knee, and there's a Nazi pointing a gun, not directly at him, but vaguely in his general direction. That's what it meant to be a Jew. To be a Jew meant to be a victim on call. It meant to be, you're the victim, we'll let you know when we need you. That's what it meant. By the way, that little boy's parents had moved to Palestine in the 1930s and didn't like it and moved back. He survived, amazingly enough, but that's another story for a different night. But in July 1967, a month after the war was over, if I asked you, tell me a photograph that now embodies for you what it means to be a Jew, the photograph that you would have picked was not that little boy with his hands in the air in the Warsaw Ghetto. The photograph would have been those three paratroopers standing shoulder to shoulder in front of the Kotel, in front of the Western Wall. And the difference between that little boy with his hands in the air and the three paratroopers standing next to each other embodies or encapsulates exactly the transformation in the self-perception of Jews all over the world, including behind the Iron Curtain, and certainly including the United States, and absolutely including Israel, because Israel actually had transformed the existential condition of what it meant to be a Jew. It was because of the war in 1967 that Jews all of a sudden did not see themselves any longer as being victims on call. There's a gun in the Warsaw Ghetto picture, and it's pointed at the Jew, and it's held by a Nazi. There are no guns in the Western Wall picture, but if there had been, you know very well who would have been holding them. There's a soldier in the first picture, but it's a Nazi. There's three soldiers in the second picture, Jews. The Jew in the first picture is a victim. The three Jews in the second picture are victors. The first one is this frail little boy with his hands frightfully in the air, and the second one is three guys in their 20s at the prime of their life, built and in shape, just having hours earlier captured the Western Wall from the Jordanians. It's two entirely opposite existential conditions. And fundamentally, that's what Israel has done. Israel has filled the Jewish people with the belief that it can actually have a different existential condition.